Okay guys, we're going to be simplifying radicals today, so if you'll turn in your book to page 514 and kind of follow along here, we'll take a look at this. So the first example I'm going to do is number 10 on page 514, and it says the square root of 44. Now what you want to do is factor 44. If you kind of remember back from probably 6th grade, when you do a factor tree on 44, 2 can go into it 22 times, and then you can break down 22 to 2 times 11. So the prime factorization of 44 is 2 times 2 times 11. Well, 2 times 2 makes 4, and we know the square root of 4 is 2, so you can bring one of those 2's outside of the radical, and it's 2 times the square root of 11. And that's how they want you to leave the answer. You don't want to multiply that or anything. The answer is 2 times the square root of 11. So if you have 2 factors that are the same, you bring one of them outside the radical. Okay, let's look at number 18. So I've got 1/2 times the square root of 112. So the first thing I'm going to do is factor 112. That's 2 times 56, 7 times 8, 2 times 4, and 2 times 2. So 1/2 times, and then we're going to use all of our prime factors here under the radical. So I've got 2 times 7 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. So the square root of 16 is 4, or I can bring out 1 2 for those two 2's and another 2 for those 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to do 1/2 times 4 times the square root of 7. 7's still left under the radical because there's only one of those. So 1/2 times 4 is 2. So the answer is the 2 times the square root of 7. Okay, let's look at number 20 next. I've got the square root of 2 times the square root of 8. Well, the square root of 2, that's already factored as far as it can go. 8 we can factor to 2 times 2 times 2. That's the prime factorization of 8. Well, now I've got 4 2's. You can count these together. There are 4 of them altogether. So for every 2, I can bring one of them out. So there's 2 I can bring out, 1 2 that I can bring out, and for these 2 2's I can bring another 2 out, and there's nothing left under my radical, so the answer is 2 times 2, which is 4. Okay, the next one I want to look at is 22. So this one's division. I've got the square root of 7/9. Probably on these fraction ones, I would rewrite this as the square root of 7 over the square root of 9. Means the same thing. Well, the 7 is already factored. 1 times 7 is the only thing that equals 7. But 9 we can factor to 3 times 3. Or you probably knew that the square root of 9 is 3. So the answer here is the square root of 7 over 3. Okay, let's take a look at number 30. So I've got 4 times the square root of 16 divided by 4. Now I can tell that 16 divided by 4 is 4. If that wouldn't divide, I would rewrite that as the square root of 16 over the square root of 4. But 16 divided by 4 is 4. And the square root of 4 is 2, so it's going to be 4 times 2. There's not going to be anything under the radical, and 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, let's take a look at 34. I've got the square root of 32 over the square root of 25. 32 is not a perfect square, so I need to factor that. And the square 32 factored is 2 times 16, 2 times 8, 2 times 4, 2 times 2. So I'm going to use all of these prime factors under there. So I've got 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 for 32. And then the square root of 25 is 5 times 5. So remember, for every 2 you can bring 1 out. So on the top I can bring out 2 2's. So I've got 2 times 2 times the square root of 2. On the bottom I can bring a 5 out, and there's nothing left under the radical. And let's go ahead and simplify this part. That's 2 times 2 is 4. So I've got 4 times the square root of 2 over 5. Okay, let's look at number 46. Got the square root of 7 times the square root of 18 divided by the square root of 2. So I'm going to simplify this division first. I'm going to do the square root of 7 times, and 18 factors to 2 times 9 and 3 times 3. So I've got 2 times 3 times 3. Remember, I'm just using my prime factors of 18 over the square root of 2. So I've got the square root of 7 times, and one of these 3's can come out, so 3 times the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. Well, the square root of 2 over the square root of 2 is just going to be 1, so I can cancel that. So what's left is this part right here, so the answer is 3 times the square root of 7. Okay, last example here, let's look at number 50. And when you get to 50, 51, and 52, you're wanting to find the area, and you're going to have to know your area formulas. And I've got yellow sheets if you need to know that. But on number 50, that's a rectangle, so it's length times width. And they tell us that the length is the square root of 10, and that the width is the square root of 20. So I'm going to factor each of those. 10 is 2 times 5, and the square root of 20 is 2 times 2 times 5. And remember, because all of this is multiplication, I can count these together. I've got 2 5's under a radical, which means I'm going to be able to bring one of those out. I've got these 2 2's, so I can bring that one out, and then I'm going to have 1 2 left underneath of the radical. So the area of that rectangle is 10 times the square root of 2.